It's 106 degrees outside today, but that's not gonna stop me from making dessert. So I'm gonna show you how to make a Mexican icebox cake called a Carlota from my new cookbook, Chicano Bakes. Welcome back to mi cocina. I am particularly excited today because we're making dessert. Not only are we making dessert, we're making a recipe out of my new book, Chicano Bakes, recipes for Mexican pan dulce, tamales, and my favorite desserts. Traditionally in Mexico, a Carlota consists of María cookie layers with a creamy lime cream cheese filling sandwiched in between. And the one that we're making today is a riff off of the traditional. So to get this going, I'm going to start by slicing my María cookies and my lady fingers in half. It is important that you use a serrated knife or a bread knife so that you're able to get a nice clean cut down the center. And now we can move on to our lady fingers. Again, we're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna take our serrated knife and slice them in half. We're not using the lady fingers for the layers. We're actually going to be using the lady fingers as a decoration for the outside perimeter of our Carlota. When it came time to figure out what recipes I wanted to include in Chicano Bakes, I wanted to make sure that I had a nice balance between traditional and non-traditional recipes in the book. So when it came time to write this recipe, I wanted to stay true to the original, and adding mango to the filling was kind of a no-brainer because mango and lime pair really well together. It's creamy, it's got a rich flavor, and so they kind of balance each other out, and it was just a really nice tweak where I was able to keep it pretty close to the traditional recipe and really just updating it so that it felt true to the work that I already do as Chicano Eats. Moving on to the creamy mango lime filling, I'm gonna start by juicing a couple of limes. It's always a good idea to roll your limes before you juice them to make sure that you're getting as much juice as possible. You guys don't forget, I will have the full recipe linked in the description bar below, so don't worry about exact measurements, just watch and enjoy. The lime juice is a very crucial part of this recipe because when it meets the condensed milk and they mix, it causes a reaction and it thickens up the filling, so it gives it this really nice, rich, and creamy consistency. For the rest of the mango puree, it's pretty simple. We are going to add our lime juice and then we're also going to add our diced mango. And a tiny pinch of salt. Pop the lid on. And you want to blend this for about a minute at high speed. You want to make sure that you have a really nice and smooth puree. With the puree done, we can move on to measuring out our heavy cream. Pop the whisk attachment on and then add the heavy cream. And then to this, I'm gonna add some vanilla bean paste. If you don't have any vanilla bean paste on hand, you are more than welcome to use vanilla extract. We've got our stiff peaks, and now we can scrape our whipped cream out of the bowl and reserve it, set it to the side while we make the rest of our filling. To the bowl, we're gonna add our softened cream cheese, and you wanna make sure that your cream cheese is nice and softened at room temperature because we wanna make sure that our filling is nice and smooth. To this, I'm adding my can of condensed milk. Now we can pop our whisk back on. It's been a minute. I'm gonna scrape down the sides and make sure that everything is nice and thoroughly incorporated. Okay, now that everything is nice and smooth, I've bumped the speed down to low. I'm gonna take the top off, and I'm gonna start incorporating my mango puree. And you wanna do this a little bit at a time to make sure that you don't get a ton of splashback. Now we can start adding our whipped cream, and I like to do this in portions. And we can fold it in. And we can fold in the rest of our whipped cream. This is something, if you have kids, this is the perfect recipe that you can make with your kids, because you end up with so many little leftovers here and there, and it's always fun to get a taste every now and then. And I love tasting as I'm cooking, and this is just, it's so fun. It's already hands-on with the cookies. Okay, look at that. She looks so luscious and thick and gorgeous. Okay, we are almost done. For this recipe, you are going to need a springform pan, and you can typically find them at like Michael's or Joann's or your local cake supply store or TJ Maxx and Home Goods, which is where I get a lot of my stuff because it's always so cheap. Okay, so we are gonna take our lady fingers and we are going to arrange them all around the outside perimeter. And then just move them around until they are nice and even. Okay? And then we can start laying down our first layer of María cookies. And then we can take about a cup of the filling. You wanna make sure not to add too much because we do have quite a couple of layers to work with. And then take an offset spatula or a spoon and then very gently push it towards the very edge or push it towards the lady fingers. I'm gonna switch over to a spoon so that it's easier. There we go, that's so much easier. And then we can start laying down a second layer of the María cookies. And add a little bit more of the filling. Again, make sure not to add too much. I think we end up with about 4 or 5 layers. So you want to make sure not to use it all in one go. Then we can move on to another layer. There's just something about baking and cooking in general that is just so therapeutic to me because I can just sit here and do this all day long, and it's just so relaxing to me. We can fit one more right in there. Some more filling. How many layers has that been? I think that's been 3, and this is going to be our 4th and last layer. There's also just something so soothing about spreading the filling around and just making little waves. I'm telling you, this would be a really nice project or activity to do with the kids, because they would just be having, I know if I was a kid, I would just be having so much fun. And we can top this with the remaining filling. For this last layer, you do want to be careful not to push the filling over the ladyfingers. You just want to make sure that it reaches all the way to the end. This looks great. Now all we need to do is pop it into the fridge for a couple of hours. You do want to let it sit in the fridge so that the filling can continue to set and thicken up. The Carlota has been sitting in the fridge for a couple of hours now, and I cannot wait to dig in. But before we do, let's unmold this and add a couple of finishing touches and then go ahead and slice into it. I'm gonna take my whipped topping, and I'm just gonna do a couple of dollops. Then go ahead and take your lime wedges and just sit. There you go. This already looks great by itself, but we're gonna finish with a sprinkle of tajin. It's always a good idea to clean your knife in between slices. And now for the moment of truth. Let's see how we did. Look at that. That is beautiful. Look at those layers. And now for my favorite part, let's give it a taste and see how we did. It's rich, it's creamy, it's tangy, it's a little tart, it's all of the above. And I absolutely appreciate that there's a really nice balance happening between the brightness of the limes, but then that rich, sweet flavor that the mango brings. I might be a little bit biased because I wrote this recipe, but I think that having included the mango in the filling was a really smart way for me to give the traditional Carlota my own spin. Don't forget that you can find the full recipe link in the description bar below. Make sure to like and subscribe. You can also find the recipe in my new book, Chicano Bakes, recipes for Mexican pan dulce, tamales, and my favorite desserts, which is out and available wherever books are sold. I really want to thank you for tuning in today. I had a blast making this, and I hope you give this recipe a try. It's easy, it's delicious, and I cannot wait to finish this slice. With that said, I will catch you in the next video. Until then, nos vemos pronto.